Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Shaylin. As always, in today's episode, we're going to learn lots of useful vocabulary and sentence structures to help improve our English even more. The topic of today's conversation is city life versus country life. This is a topic many of us can relate to. Some people love the energy and opportunities of city life, while others prefer the peace and slower pace of the countryside. Both have their own advantages and disadvantages. So before we begin, tell me in the comments, do you prefer city life or country life and why? And if you enjoy learning English with me, please support the channel by liking this video and sharing it with other learners. This episode is designed for B2 to C1 learners, so you'll hear some advanced words and expressions in the conversations. Try to guess their meanings as you listen, and don't worry if you don't understand everything right away. We'll learn it all together afterward. Now, let's watch the first conversation and see what our speakers have to say.
Sometimes I think I'd go crazy if I lived in the countryside. I really love the energy here.
Really? I have to admit, the hustle and bustle wears me out. I dream of waking up to total quiet.
I understand, but for me, the convenience is unbeatable. I can grab a coffee at midnight, the gym is right around the corner, and my commute is just 15 minutes by subway.
True, but the cost of living drives me crazy. Half my salary goes to rent for a tiny apartment. In a small town, I'd get a whole house with a garden for the same price.
That's a good point. But here, there's so much to do. I'm never bored. And I love being anonymous. You can just disappear in the crowd when you want to.
I get that, but where I grew up, it was a really close-knit community. Everyone knew each other. People looked out for one another. Here in the city, I barely know my next-door neighbor.
I guess it depends on what you value. I prefer city life because I feel more alive here. The opportunities and the people push me forward.
And I'd rather live in the countryside because I need space and a slower rhythm. I think I'll make that move one day.
Well, you can invite me for a weekend. I'll bring the coffee.
That was a really interesting conversation, wasn't it? Mia and David clearly have different preferences, but neither of them was trying to convince the other person that they were wrong. They were simply sharing what matters most to them. And that's exactly how many real-life conversations sound. Now, let's slow things down and take a closer look at some of the language they used. Let's start with a phrase David used right at the beginning. He said, "The hustle and bustle wears me out." The expression hustle and bustle is commonly used to describe the busy, noisy, and energetic activity of a place, especially a city. Think about crowded streets, people rushing to work, cars honking, shops full of customers, and everything moving very quickly. That's the hustle and bustle. Some people absolutely love that kind of environment because it feels exciting and full of life. Others find it exhausting. That's why David said that it wears him out. If something wears you out, it makes you feel very tired. For example, you could say, "Long meetings wear me out," or "Looking after young children all day can really wear you out." So when David says, "The hustle and bustle wears me out," he means that all the activity and noise leave him feeling drained and exhausted. Now, let's look at another useful word, convenience. Mia said the convenience is unbeatable. Convenience is something that makes your life easier, quicker, or more comfortable. When people talk about the convenience of city life, they usually mean that everything is nearby. You don't have to travel very far to find a supermarket, a gym, a restaurant, or public transportation. Imagine it's 11 o'clock at night and you suddenly need something from a shop. In many cities, that's not a problem. That's convenience. For example, you could say, one of the biggest conveniences of living in the city is having everything close by. Notice that convenience isn't about luxury, it's about ease and practicality. Mia also mentioned her commute. She said her commute is only 15 minutes by subway. Your commute is the regular journey you make between your home and your workplace, school, or university. Some people are lucky enough to have a short commute, while others spend an hour or even 2 hours traveling every day. You might hear someone say, "My commute takes 45 minutes each way," or "I moved closer to work so I could shorten my commute." Since commuting is a part of daily life for millions of people, this is a very useful word to know. Another important phrase from the conversation is cost of living. David said that the cost of living drives him crazy. The cost of living refers to how much money you need to pay for everyday necessities such as housing, food, transportation, healthcare, and other basic expenses. When rents increase, food becomes more expensive, and transportation costs rise, we say that the cost of living is increasing. For example, many people are moving away from big cities because the cost of living has become too high. This is a phrase you'll hear frequently in news reports, discussions about money, and everyday conversations. And finally, let's look at close-knit community. David said where he grew up was a close-knit community. A close-knit community is a group of people who know each other well and support one another. People often help each other, look out for each other, and feel connected. In a close-knit community, your neighbors are not just strangers living next door, they're people you recognize and trust. For example, you could say, "I grew up in a close-knit community where everyone knew everyone else." It's a very positive expression because it suggests warmth, support, and strong relationships. Now, let's move on to some useful sentence structures that you can start using in your own English. Mia said, "I prefer city life because I feel more alive here." This is one of the most useful ways to express a preference. The structure is simple. I prefer something because. For example, I prefer studying in the morning because I'm more focused, or I prefer traveling by train because it's more comfortable. David used another excellent structure. He said, "I'd rather live in the countryside because I need space." The phrase "I'd rather" is another way of saying I would prefer. For example, "I'd rather stay home tonight," or "I'd rather work from home than commute every day." Native speakers use this structure all the time because it sounds natural and conversational. Another useful structure you can borrow is "what I like most about is." For example, "What I like most about city life is the variety of food," or "What I like most about the countryside is the peace and quiet." This structure is wonderful because it helps you give a clear and detailed opinion instead of simply saying, "I like it." You can also use expressions such as "one reason I enjoy" or "the main advantage is" when you want to explain your opinion. For example, "One reason I enjoy living in a small town is that life feels less stressful," or "the main advantage of city life is the number of career opportunities available." These structures will immediately make your English sound more organized and confident. Before we move on to our next conversation, let's quickly look at a grammar point that appeared throughout the discussion: comparatives. Whenever we compare two things, we use comparative forms such as bigger, smaller, quieter, cheaper, or more exciting. Mia sees the city as more exciting, while David sees the countryside as quieter and more peaceful. So you could say city life is more exciting than country life, or country life is quieter than city life. Or you could say the countryside is cheaper than the city, or the city is more convenient for public transportation. Comparatives are extremely useful because whenever you're discussing two options, you're naturally comparing them. Learning to use them confidently will help you express your opinions much more clearly. All right, now that we've explored some of the key language from that conversation, let's move on to our second conversation and see how a different experience can completely change someone's perspective on city life and country life. Jack, oh my goodness. Look at you. You're glowing. How's country life treating you?
Emma, it's so good to see you. Honestly, it was a big change, but I think it saved me.
Saved you? That's a strong word. What do you mean?
In the city, I was completely overwhelmed. I was always on the go, but I never felt present. The noise, the pressure, the constant notifications, it was too much. I needed to recharge, and the countryside gave me that.
I see. But what about the modern amenities you left behind? Fast internet, 24-hour delivery, the social life?
That was the trade-off. I gave up some amenities, yes, but I gained something I didn't even know I needed: space and mental calm. The work-life balance out here is so much better. When I finish work, I step into my garden, not another crowded train.
That does sound appealing. I'll be honest, sometimes I feel so anonymous in the city, and while the energy can be vibrant, it can also be exhausting.
Exactly. The city is vibrant and full of opportunity. I'm not denying that. But for me now, peace matters more. Both options have their pros and cons.
So no regrets?
None. At the end of the day, it comes down to what you value most. Right now, I value space and peace over constant excitement.
I'm happy for you, Jack. You've clearly found the right place. Maybe I'll come and recharge with you one weekend. There was a lot of thoughtful language in that conversation, wasn't there? Jack wasn't just talking about where he lives, he was talking about how his lifestyle changed and how it affected the way he feels. Let's unpack some of the words and expressions that helped him tell that story. One word that really stood out was overwhelmed. Jack said that in the city he felt completely overwhelmed. This is a word we use when everything feels like too much work, too much pressure, too much noise, too many things competing for your attention. It's that feeling when your mind is so full that you don't know where to start. For example, someone starting a new job might say, "I felt overwhelmed during my first week because there was so much information to learn." It's a very common word in everyday English because people often use it when talking about stress and mental well-being. Jack also said something many of us can probably relate to: "I needed to recharge." I like this expression because it creates a very clear picture in your mind. Just like a phone needs charging when the battery is low, people sometimes need time to recharge too. Maybe you've had a busy week at work, spent hours studying, or been dealing with a lot of responsibilities. Eventually, you need a break. You need time to relax and recover your energy. That's exactly what Jack felt the countryside gave him. You could say, "I usually recharge by spending time with family," or "a quiet weekend helps me recharge after a stressful month." Another interesting word from the conversation was amenities. Emma asked Jack if he missed the modern amenities of city life. Amenities are the things that make life easier, more comfortable, or more enjoyable. Think about public transportation, shopping centers, restaurants, sports facilities, parks, or high-speed internet. These are all amenities. When people compare cities and small towns, amenities are often part of the discussion because larger cities usually offer more of them. Now let's talk about one of my favorite words from this conversation: trade-off. Jack said that leaving the city involved a trade-off. A trade-off happens when you give up one thing in order to gain something else. In life, we make trade-offs all the time. You might accept a longer commute in exchange for a bigger house. You might choose a higher-paying job even if it means having less free time. In Jack's case, he gave up some conveniences and amenities, but gained more peace, space, and balance. Whenever you're discussing choices, this is an excellent word to use. Speaking of balance, Jack also mentioned work-life balance. This phrase refers to the relationship between your work and your personal life. If work takes up all your time and energy, your work-life balance may not be very healthy. On the other hand, if you have enough time for family, hobbies, relaxation, and personal interests alongside your job, people often say you have a good work-life balance.
It's a phrase you'll hear frequently in discussions about careers and lifestyle choices. And Emma then touched on something many people experience in large cities. She said she sometimes feels anonymous. When you're anonymous, people don't know who you are. In a huge city, you can walk through a crowd of thousands of people and nobody knows your name. Some people enjoy that freedom because they value privacy. Others find it lonely because they miss a stronger sense of community. That's why this word can have both a positive and a negative meaning depending on the situation. And finally, Emma described the city as vibrant. This is a wonderful adjective. If a place is vibrant, it's full of life, energy, activity, and excitement. A vibrant city usually has busy streets, cultural events, restaurants, music, and lots of things happening. For example, you might say, "I love visiting vibrant cities because there's always something new to discover." Now let's move on to some of the speaking structures that made this conversation sound so natural. One thing I really liked was how both speakers acknowledged the good points on the other side, instead of presenting everything as black and white. Emma said that city life can be vibrant, while Jack admitted that cities are full of opportunity. This is a great reminder that when discussing opinions in English, sounding balanced often sounds more natural than sounding extreme. A useful word for doing this is while. For example, while city life offers more opportunities, country life provides more peace. Another great option is whereas. You could say, whereas cities are usually fast-paced, rural areas tend to be more relaxed. Both of these structures help you compare two ideas in a smooth and sophisticated way. The conversation also included a fantastic expression. At the end of the day, it comes down to what you value most. Native speakers use this kind of language when they want to summarize their opinion after considering different perspectives. You can use similar expressions such as, "from my perspective," "personally speaking," or "it really depends on your priorities." These phrases make your opinions sound thoughtful and mature. Before we move on, let's look at one grammar point that's very useful for discussions like this. Imagine you wanted to talk about a different lifestyle, or a life you don't currently have. This is where the second conditional becomes useful. For example, if I lived in the countryside, I'd spend more time outdoors. Or, if I had a bigger apartment, I'd work from home more often. We use this structure to imagine situations that aren't true right now, but are possible to think about. It's perfect for topics like lifestyle, dreams, and future possibilities. And that's a wrap for today's episode. Through two natural conversations, we explored the differences between city life and country life while learning some useful English along the way. We looked at vocabulary such as hustle and bustle, cost of living, close-knit community, trade-off, overwhelmed, recharge, and work-life balance. We also practiced helpful sentence structures for expressing preferences, giving reasons, comparing ideas, and sharing balanced opinions in a natural way. But today's lesson wasn't really about deciding whether city life or country life is better. It was about learning how to talk about your preferences, priorities, and the trade-offs that come with different lifestyles. After all, what feels right for one person may not feel right for someone else. Now it's your turn. Here's today's comment challenge. Do you prefer city life or country life, and why? Try to answer using one of the structures we learned today, such as, "Personally, I prefer blank because blank," or "while blank, I think blank." For example, "Personally, I prefer country life because I enjoy peace and nature. While cities offer more opportunities, I think a slower pace of life suits me better." I'd love to read your answers, so make sure to share them in the comments. And if you enjoyed today's lesson, please support the channel by liking this video, subscribing to JISH Learn English Podcast, and sharing it with other learners. Your support helps me create more lessons like this. Thank you for spending your time learning with me today. I'm Shaylin, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.